Welcome to Study Loop.
Okay guys, this is chapter 26, problem 7. This problem is a little bit longer. It's in 5 parts. So overall we're given that each student has $1,000 to invest. Harry can invest at 5%, Ron can invest at 8%, and Hermione can invest at 20%, but each can invest a maximum of $2,000. But remember, to start with, they only each have $1,000. In part A, we assume that borrowing and lending are prohibited. So how much will each student end up with after investing? So rather that Harry can invest at 5%. So at 5%, so he'll invest $1,000 times 5%. It gives him $1,050. Ron can invest at 8%. Times 0.08 will give him 1,080, and Hermione can invest at 20%, 1,000 times 0.2, there's point, and there's point, for 1,200. So for part B, now we're assuming that there is a loan market with an interest rate R. So what are the determining factors for who's going to be a borrower and who's going to be a lender? So there are going to be 2 relevant pieces of information. The first is what's the rate of return that you can get on an investment. So the investment return. We were given that in part A. Right, it's 5% for Harry, it's 8% for Ron, and it's 20% for Hermione. The second piece of information is going to be what's the rate at which the funds can be lent and borrowed. So what is R. So what's the investment return and what is R? Those are going to be the 2 relevant pieces of information for who will be a lender and who will be a borrower. So for question C, so what would be the quantity of loanable funds supplied and demanded at 7%? So at both 7%, so at 7%, both Ron and Hermione can invest at a higher rate, so they're both going to demand money. So they want more to invest. But Harry can only make 5% from his investment, and so 7%, 5% is less than 7%, so Harry's going to want to lend. Then at 10%, Hermione can still make more, 20% than 10%, so still wants more to invest. And in this way, then Harry and Ron, right, 10 is greater than 8 and 5, so they're going to want to lend. So up here at 7%, you are going to have, this is $2,000, right, because Ron and Hermione want to invest. So there's going to be $2,000 demanded, but only $1,000 supplied. Here's the other way around. It's going to be $1,000 demanded, but $2,000 supplied. For part D, what would be the equilibrium interest rate, and who would want to borrow and who would want to lend at this rate? So the equilibrium rate, is going to be 8%. At 8%, Ron can invest at 8%, so he's going to continue to invest his $1,000. Harry can only invest at 5%, so he doesn't want to invest. He's going to then lend because the 8% is bigger than the 5%. And Hermione can invest at 20%, so she's going to continue to invest because 20% is bigger than 8%, and then she will want to borrow money from Harry so that she can invest more than her original $1,000. So at an 8% rate, Ron invests, Hermione invests, but borrows to invest, and Harry lends and does not invest. So the last part, how much will each student end up with? So here, Ron is the easiest case. So Ron, remember, just invests $1,000. Going a little crazy over here. Invests 1,000 at 8% and gets 1,080. Hermione borrowed 1,000 from Harry, and so we'll invest 2,000 at 20%, and it will end with 2,400. But she then has to repay Harry 1,000 at 8% equals 1,080. So then she will end up with 2,400 minus 1,080 equals 1,320, and Harry will also end up with 1,080. So then who is better off and who is worse off? The person who lent and the person who borrowed are both better off. The person who did not participate is just as good off as they were before, and nobody is worse off. So this was question 26, problem 7. Sorry it was so long. Hopefully you stuck with it and it was helpful.